Hi everyone, we're just going to share 5 things that you can do as a couple as you plan for 2025. And this is because this is
26.
as you plan for 2026. I don't mind my voice. Just recovering from the flu. But 5 things you can do as a couple as you plan for 2026, because this is something that we're also doing as a family, just having a strategy session and debriefing on the year and kind of highlighting the goals that we have for 2026. The first thing is gratitude. We all know that it's a season of gratitude, it's a season of thanksgiving, but I find that many times, especially when we look at the things that we've written down, there might be this sense of we haven't done as much as we probably planned to do or as much as we anticipated, or even if we compare to the results we see around us, then there might be this pressure of, okay, how has my life moved forward? Shefa, do you have something to share about that?
Yeah, gratitude is just like you said, is the first thing. And when I think gratitude, I'm not just thinking about the positive things that happens during the year, but maybe some not so good based on your expectations. Things you expect that didn't happen the year as well. We probably learn lessons from there that we can take forward to the new year. So that's one thing to be grateful for as well.
Mm-hmm. And I think seasons of growth too could come with its own kind of confusion, if I may put it that way, because many times we've actually really, really grown. Our perspectives have shifted, our beliefs have shifted, and these are very, very, very powerful things, because for an adult to change perspective, it does take a lot, because many times we are set in our ways. We're already are on autopilot in many areas of our lives, but these things in many cases, especially when we're not like sharing and putting things out, they might not be visible to the outsider. And many times when we share wins for the year, these are not the kind of things we share, right? We don't share that, oh,
Yeah.
my perspective has changed and everything. That is also a kind of growth, and that is something that really, really, really one should be grateful for. So just highlighting that Thanksgiving is the first thing. I think the other thing that we've done is highlighting our fears,
Yeah.
right? Like being able to identify the things that held us back in the year. We had a conversation this morning about how that starting a new year, there is this drive to set goals and everything, but I find the quote that kind of summarizes it for me is know thyself and change the world. I find that we have to be diligent students of 2025 to make the most of 2026, and that is, we have to look at what worked, what didn't work, and be able to double down on the things that are working and kind of remove the things that didn't work, so that we can leverage what we already have for 2026. So it's not really about bringing in new projects or new goals. It's really about looking at what we do, streamlining our processes, building structures as need be, automating processes, just to ensure that we're leveraging what we already have. So we are not just pulling things from different angles and starting the new year on a clean slate as though we didn't do anything in 2025.
Yeah, and I think talking about the fears, like you said, is really important, which we also spoke about. And because if we set goals like we always do, how are we so sure that the same thing that held us back this year
Exactly.
will not do the same the next year? But
Mhm.
being able to, identify our biases, our insecurities, our fears, and the likes, and I mean, it goes a long way to help prepare for the new goals or projects that you are setting for the next year, which is what we did as well.
And I think even more so as a couple, right? We're asking questions about, okay, these are your fears, right? Like, how can
Mm-hmm.
I better assist you?
Yeah.
What really worked in our relationship? What
Mm-hmm.
can I do more of? And what can't I do more? And I know when we started, right? Like, you didn't have a
Yeah.
lot to say, because you're just like, I'm a perfect wife and everything. Just so nothing I can do better because I'm just too good. Anyway, that's the truth. But everybody's learning, right? There's always something. And so we actually had to dig deeper, right? Like I had
Yeah.
I had to identify some things that I could clearly see were your fears that you didn't see. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like, because sometimes it might be like, yeah, we have a great relationship, maybe our finances are good, we have a great family, we're building something beautiful. So these exercises don't seem to help because we just can't identify anything. But sometimes it could even be just borrowing the perspective of the other person, right? Like,
Yeah.
how do you see me? Like, what do you think held me back? And we're able to then identify ways that I can support you better, and ways that you can support me better when we do the strategy session for the other side,
Yeah.
right? Because we
Yeah.
haven't gotten to
And I
that
think
yet.
another thing is it's not easy to talk about your fears, your insecurities, and your biases, and
By yourself.
by yourself, and not feel ashamed about it. And then when you analyze your partner, which was what I did from that perspective, they may not have the same fears, but it doesn't mean they don't have their own. So it might appear that this person is doing really great. I'm the one struggling with this. So why do I? And my head was really full, and I was even telling her that I wasn't able to go to bed early last night, and I wasn't really doing anything. It was just that I had a lot on my mind. But just having the strategy session and putting everything into perspective, bringing our strength on board in the area of my weakness actually helped to distill many of those things that seem to be mind-boggling. And now, for your information, I have a lot of clarity now.
That's like, you should pay me. You should pay me. This free coaching that you enjoy, you should just be paying me. Just be spraying me money. Anyway, we've identified 3 things so far, right?
Yeah.
So we've talked about Thanksgiving. We've talked about identifying our fears, right? I think
Is bringing the strength of the other person.
exactly, right? Like, because we're meant to be complements. We're meant to complement each other. One would chase 1,000 and two would chase 10,000. But actually, working together as destiny partners, it's a whole different ball game. I think that's something we started to come to like 2 years ago, and we've been married 8 years, and friends for going on 15 years now, right?
Yeah.
And it's just the past 2 years or so that we started to really say, okay, how can we better partner together? Because everybody has their own style of working. We don't have the same sleep pattern, for instance.
Yeah.
Right. And it's taken us quite a while to get a sense of, okay, so how do we work together when my own peak time is your own sleep time, and the other, and vice versa, right? And these are things that we walk through as couples as well. So I think, leveraging your partner's strength, because you guys, I think the example that we cited as we had a conversation this morning was the example Mildred Okonkwo cited, right? Like how that her husband would do lots of teachings, but he wasn't writing any books. And so she then transcribed his teaching because she had a grace for writing, and she transcribed his teaching, and that was how some of his first few books were produced, right? So that's just a very beautiful example of leveraging each other's strength, right? Because we can sit down and say, why don't you write a book? You have all these things in your head, you are so good and all of those things. But if it's not that person's strength at that point in time and you have it, I mean, it's a no-brainer. It's a win for the family when we all work together, right? So that's number 3. And I think the other thing we talked about, aside fears, we talked about the bold steps each person took in 2025, right? Do you want to speak to that?
I think it's also very important to celebrate the bold step, and
Even if it's little, right?
yeah, even if it's little. I think one of the bold step that I mentioned, which was really bold, was having to go on social media, do live stream. Most of our meetings, we've been doing it behind the scene. It's like a court, right? And there seemed to be a demand to start putting things out so that we can be visible, which is definitely not my kind of person. And so I had to move out of my comfort zone. I wouldn't say I've done a great job in doing that yet, but just stepping out to do that, it was a very huge shift for me, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's also one of the things we're also looking at in identifying the bold steps are what really worked, like what made you eventually take the leap, because we want to be able to replicate that in the coming year, right? So we want to see what really helped you, and what helped each person might be different, right? Like for some people it's committing yourself like externally, right? Like having accountability system outside of even your relationship. For some people it could just be, okay, I just started, and then building up that consistency. And it's quite interesting because, like I usually would say, you have taught week in, week out, like every single week you've had meetings, multiple meetings, actually teaching for about 5 years now, or even maybe over 5 years, but officially for the past 5 years, right? And then live streaming, like it's supposed to be a no-brainer, right? Like you've been, this is what you do, this is your realm, but yeah, just like, okay, and all of those kind of things. It's I have done on my video, something that I wasn't doing before, right? So I think it's just understanding that regardless of how much you do, there would always be something, right? There's always something that you're going to have to like confront and overcome and all that. And I'm
Yeah, for
super
sure.
proud of you for doing that, because I definitely agree that you used to be more of a quiet person, but
I used to be, not anymore.
you can't walk with me and be quiet anyway. I know some people will say I'm also very quiet. I'm actually a very quiet person as well, but it is what it is. So now we've talked about four, right? And then we're
Yeah,
going to highlight the last one. I think the last one we did was actually to identify our projects, right,
yeah,
for the year, and that's what we did here. Where is it?
mm-hmm.
Where is it? Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's to highlight the project, right, and to kind of declutter, each person's mind as to what are the DDK calls them cascading I don't know, maybe cascading systems, for lack of a better way to put it. Basically, what is the one thing you can do that would have a domino effect on other things you do? So
mm-hmm.
we've been doing this consistently, right? But what is that one thing that is going to change every other thing? And
Yeah,
it sometimes will take you time to get there in terms of identify what that one thing is. But once you identify that one thing, it actually has a cascading effect on the other things,
yeah.
right? And that's something that we're able to identify, right? You actually have a whole page written on it, and
Yeah,
you were just smiling and grinning. So I think you should be the one to speak about that part.
I think the most important thing to that is the fact that it helps you to buy back time. Right, because if we really want to live an impactful life, and extend our influence, then we need to come up with a system that will help us to generate such power of influence in each things that we do, right? And that's what we've been able to do. How do we bring all of the things that we are doing together and buy back time, so that we won't have to just be pouring out every time, and then
Exactly.
we won't be able to reach as many people as we could.
Exactly.
So, and that's what we've been able to do, and identify system to do that, so that one thing will produce that multiple
Multiple results.
results. Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah, which is life changing, to be honest. And I think another thing that you mentioned casually that I would just speak to quickly is also talk about the mind shift. I think it's
Exactly.
very important,
Yeah.
because you may not really know how much of change you've experienced just by looking at the external things. We are very quick to point to the external things, but
Exactly.
the real treasure are the things that are invested in us. Right? Yeah.
Thanks for highlighting that. And just on a final note, that particular point is something that I usually would teach about as well. And I say that as adults, a time comes in our lives where whether we buy a new house or a new car, or we have children, get married, do all the we know that there is something missing. And many times it's that growth, it's that perspective change. So, and the moment that one starts to happen, there's a confidence it gives you even without those external results, because you know that there's something changing about you. And I think it's one of the greatest miracles. One of the scriptures that I will use to talk, and I typically would use to talk about it, is the one that talks about transformation in the book of Romans. It says, let God change you into a new person. You would think he will change you into a new person by doing something drastic, or maybe even giving you a new body, all those things. No, he basically says by changing how you think, that is by elevating new, by changing your perspective, by giving you new information, by changing your operating system. And that is what constitutes what it means to actually be a new person. So maybe you don't have all the physical things to show for how 2025 went, but if there is one thing that has changed in your perspective, if there is one knowledge that you gained, definitely 2025 was a success. And you can take these 5 things and leverage them, and let's go do 2026 with power. So thanks for listening to our TED
Yeah,
talk.
thank you for listening. And after the strategy session, then family meeting can call me, where the kids would also have a voice in
Exactly.
decisions that impact the family at
Family as
large.
well.
Yeah,
Yeah, so this is just the couples part. It's actually in different stages, right? I think
yeah,
this first one was more focused on you. You had a lot on your mind that we needed to really focus on. The next one is, of course, we're doing with the kids as well. Let us know if you'd like us to share more of this. We
And if you
definitely could
want to
share.
hear our own session as well, when I become the coach this time, also let us know and we
Why
can
do they
share
why
with
do they
you.
need to hear me? I'm just a
You are the
perfect
coach today,
person.
I'll be the coach next time.
But yeah, for sure, we could definitely share that as well. Well, thanks for listening and have a great rest of your day and happy new year in advance. Bye.